Hello, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome in. I am Stephanie R. Bridges, and you are tuned into From Mirror to Manuscript. So I am super excited about this series. We are live streaming from Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And this is really important to me because I think your story is so important. Your legacy is so important. And I know sometimes we feel like, perhaps not too much has gone on in our lives, or we haven't reached the heights that we've wanted to reach. But it's so important that we utilize our voices, that we share our voices as a guide to those who come after us. So that is why we're here, from mirror to manuscript. Also, most authors starting out and continuing throughout their journey, they start out by sharing information about themselves. So you write about what it is that you know. So whether it's a true story or it's a story about a dream that you've had or something you've always wanted to do, or about someone else someone else's experience, that is oftentimes where our voice comes from. And it's important that readers read books that reflect their lives, that reflect their journeys, that reflect their neighborhoods, their stories, their names, their likenesses. And so that's why I'm bringing these amazing authors who are Black, who are indie, who are local, and they are sharing their work. And I pray that you will support. Now, you do see there is a QR code in the corner, so you can just use your phone if you would like to purchase today's author's book. And then also, I'll be sharing links and everything as well. So definitely, if you log in, if you see this live, I would love, love, love to hear from you. So, communicate, check in, like, share, do all of the things. But yeah, without further ado, I'm going to bring on our first author. And this is a young lady that I've had the pleasure of working with. I've had the pleasure of assisting her with her children's book, and that is what we're going to talk about today. I'm really going to allow her to introduce herself and tell you more about herself. But our first guest, and this is huge, you guys. Who wants to be the first guest? So I really appreciate her coming on first, is Dr. Eunice Inez. Woo!
Yay. Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and with your audience. I am so astonished to have this opportunity. Um, I am a retired public school teacher. So I've read lots and lots of children's books and adult books, textbooks, just some of everything. going through school. And if I am sitting somewhere and there's a magazine or a book, I am going to pick it up and read it. So reading has been like a haven for me. When I was growing up, I used to read novels and I would journal. I like to journal. So I have a funny story. I think it's funny about
Yeah.
my one of my younger sisters broke into my what we called then a diary. So we
Mhm.
had a lock and key. So she was able to get into my diary. And I found out later, I was so upset. I was 13 years old and she was probably about 5. And
Wow.
she couldn't even read, not my stuff. Anyway. But it was just the fact that she broke into my, I just thought my writing was sacred and it
Mhm.
meant a lot to me. And I think writing anyway is a sacred um, activity. All
Mhm.
when we write, our brain and our writing skills, they just come together. It activates the reading and the learning. So we learn better when we're incorporating writing and reading. So that's why sometimes we can take notes
Mhm.
and that we read, and it helps us to memorize it. And retelling the story, I've had, I know I was trained to have to read to the children and have them retell the story because retelling it helps them to remember the story. And then
Mhm.
if you can retell something, that means we know that you have the essence of the story. You comprehend it if you can retell it. Now, even if the children memorize a story, they're still engaged in reading. So
Yes.
reading engagement is really, really big. So a lot of kids are not exposed to reading. They say if a child doesn't see anybody in their family reading on a regular basis, they're less likely to read. So we introduce various books, various genres to our children. So when I was at Ohio State, I took a class. It was children's literature. And I
Mhm.
said, it was like my third or second year in college. And it was so interesting just seeing the different books that, and then I said, oh, one day I'm going to win the Caldecott Award. And I didn't realize I am not even an illustrator, but whoever illustrates my book. But I really wanted to write children's
Mhm.
books. So I just finished my first children's book this past February with
Yes.
Stephanie Bridges. I kind of let her take the reign because I didn't have a clue about a children's book. I put the words together, but I
Yes.
didn't know. I did draw some stick people. I can do that. And I even drew the one person was humped over. I just drew like an M and put the face on it, but it wasn't nearly as well as my the person that did my illustration, Aaliyah.
Yes, you had Aaliyah Burks do the illustration. So let me jump in for a second because you said so much. And just in talking already, the educator has stepped out, and you
Mhm.
talked about the importance of children seeing someone reading and
Yes.
then being able to retell the story. So tell us about the book that you've written and how it would fit well in the classroom or at home, or for small children or older children. What intrinsic value and specific value does your book have for young readers?
Well, you know what? I started this book about 10 years ago, and it was in my head. I was telling people I am writing a book about my father. So, my father was an antique dealer, and he had an antique store. So, for for those of us who grew up in my family, he he took us to his store. We would do some, well, actually, we were his employees. So we would shine silver, and he wouldn't give us too much work to do. Sometimes we would wrap the glass in newspapers because it protected the glass from breaking if it was in a bag or a box. So we would sit down there and shine silverware. That's when people had real silver.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is that he collected coins. So his business evolved from first he used to do the gun shows. It was like rifles everywhere. Then he went into crystal and glassware. I remember, and in the book, I talk about us having like a field trip going to the Corning Glassware Center in the state. We grew up in the upstate New York. So we went to the Corning Glassware Center where he was doing one of his antique shows. And so while he was in the antique show, we were able to go through the glass center. It's like a factory where they made glass, and it was like, wow, it was amazing. It was bubbles. I mean, the glass looked like bubbles, um, because the glass blower was actually blowing into the glass, and it was changing the shape, and the colors were changing. And I thought, oh, this is my best field trip. So now I have a picture on the cover that my father, he used to work on antique clocks. So he would fix them and bring them back alive. I don't know, people would bring their grandfather clocks, any kind of clock he could fix. And what was so special about my father is that he had one arm. He lost his arm when he was young, as a young child. And then he learned he was the right arm dominated, and that was the arm that he lost. So he learned to tie his shoestrings, button his coat,
Wow.
load his truck, play
Wow.
the harmonica, and he would put his own coat on. It was just amazing. So one day I decided that I was going to try the arm on, the prosthetic arm. And so then I got in trouble because the arm was lying on my parents' bed. And so then I just could not get my arm in there. It was a metal plate there so that it could fit his arm. And so then my mother told me to stop playing. I got scolded for that, and I didn't understand. I said, I'm just trying to get his arm on. And I
Mhm.
said, I don't understand how he puts it on. So at 5 years old, I did not understand how my father had this arm, but it was just normal to me that my father had one arm. Um, Really, not a lot of people asked me about his arm.
Mhm.
I guess when I was little, nobody asked me. And even as an adult, people were sometimes just courteous. They didn't want to ask questions.
Right.
So
So
I
let me
never
okay,
knew.
so let me jump in again. So as you guys are listening, you can see that her book has a lot of family in it. It has a lot of history in it. It has a lot to learn, a lot for young people to learn about. So, antiques, we don't even, I don't know what would be considered an antique. You know how you get older
Yeah,
and you don't realize like the things that are just normal to you are now antiques, like like telephones that are wired to the phone to the wall, like even
yes,
cordless phones. Nobody even uses cordless phones anymore
yeah,
that much. So this is an opportunity to learn about antiques. This is an opportunity, as she stated, to learn early on about a prosthetic arm and to do research on how, back when her father had a prosthetic arm, it was just that it was an arm. So he had to actually do everything with his other arm. But now, you know how things are so different,
Mhm.
and prosthetics arms actually move, and they can be connected. And now I'm making up stuff, but
Yes.
it's so interesting how things have changed. And I think, because of that, getting that historical feel. And then also the illustrator, Aaliyah Burks, she did such an amazing job. Aaliyah is one of the illustrators I work with a lot with clients. And she said she did such an amazing job
Mhm.
adding that historical feel to the illustrations as well. So I definitely want to show this again. I want to show the cover, and then also like some of the pages. That's him at an antique show, and that's Miss Dr. Eunice and her siblings there. So tell us something about your sibling. Miss Laura is on the call. That's why I said Miss Laura. My
Okay.
apologies. Um, so tell us a little bit about your family and about your siblings and everything like that, because I know there's a little story behind the two siblings that you have in here. And so
Yes.
I thought that was kind of cute and kind of
Yeah.
funny.
So I couldn't put all my brothers and sisters in there. They weren't even all born when I was 5 years old. And my father was the breadwinner of the family, so I guess his antique store it provided for us because I have um, 8 sisters and 6 brothers. So then I had to, I guess I had to remember that, but we didn't all work at the store at the same time. So my group was one sister who was older and one brother who was older than I was. So that's why the rest of the people are not in the book. I didn't call their names because I didn't want to get in trouble with the rest of my siblings. Because somebody already, my brother, younger brother, asked me, "Where am I? You could have put me in the crib." So, so I didn't want to start that because I wasn't writing about my whole family per se, but it was about what my father was able to do. I never thought of all the things my father was able to do until I was an adult. And that was about 10 years ago. I started thinking, wow, he did all of this stuff with one arm. Because sometimes you can find yourself complaining, I can't do that. I don't have this or that.
Mhm.
And I have 2 arms. I don't know what he would have done if he had 2 arms. I don't know. He probably had 10 stores. Who knows? But
Right.
that, even though this book can teach children about resilience and never giving up, and that's what I talk with the children about when I go into schools. It also covers disabilities and how do you handle it. Some people can really become depressed and giving up, but that wasn't my father. He taught me through watching him. He never said, don't give up, but through watching him, I knew that nothing was impossible. So, this is, even though I tell the children about resilience and not giving up, these are the things that I learned from watching
Mhm.
my father. I had learned first before I could tell someone else. And I had to realize how my father and my mother shaped me as a child because so much emphasis was put on when people would see us, they say, "Oh, you come from a big family." So people had sometimes a negative view of big families, like you're not going to do well. And then
Mm.
I said, "Okay, what about the people? You got 3 in your family, so what's going on? We shouldn't be in the same. We shouldn't be in the same room, should we? We shouldn't have the same. You should be. You should be on the moon. I shouldn't
Well,
see your
well,
feet."
let's talk about that a little bit, because I think, like for my mom, and my mom is older than you. There were 13 in her family, but I'm thinking, traditionally we think that anybody in their 60s, 70s, 80s that they had larger families, at least 5 children, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But like 13, I mean, you had a lot. You have what, 15?
Yes, 15 of us.
But 11, 13, that seems like that would be like mainstream. So is that not true?
Oh, that we were mainstreamed?
Yeah, that most families had a lot of children, like
No,
10, between like 8 and 15 children.
I think it became more and more rare by the time we came along. There were some families, there were still maybe 5 or 6 families in our neighborhood, but most people, they thought 8 kids was a little family. And then by the time I grew up, 2 kids were the norm. But
Okay.
yes, what my parents did and what my mother did was gave us all a buddy system. And
Mhm.
so we all had to be responsible for one other person. And God knows my sister gave me a headache because I had to be responsible for her doing the right thing and not getting in trouble and getting home from school. That was the main thing, is that we went to school in a buddy system. And
Mhm.
so we were responsible for getting that person home. And I happened to be older than my sister, so I had to get her home. And so that's, we were accountable for
Mhm.
someone else. And I learned how to be, some of those things helped me to be a teacher. When I became a teacher, is being responsible. I would teach my students how to be responsible for each other and
Yes.
do cooperative learning. So we had a, a connected family. It was very enmeshed. So when you grow up, you think, oh, I can't live without these people. But you grow up and you understand that you must have your own identity.
Mhm.
And the good thing is my father pushed education. So we all went to college.
Oh, that is
So,
excellent. That is
yes.
excellent.
Even my grandmother, my father's mother, was a teacher, and I was
Mhm.
able to visit her hometown last summer, and they used to teach inside of a church, so it was a one-room schoolhouse. So she was a teacher there, and I never thought I would be a teacher.
Okay, so we want to talk about you being a teacher, but also Miss Laura did bring up about your father being a business owner and an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
So not only, do we not hear about that much, especially, in the Black community. How, do you ever look back on that and then just realize and recognize how rare that is and how he was able to support the entire family, living out his dream?
Yes, yes, he did. My father was brilliant because when he was in school, there was a teacher who could not do a math problem. So she told one of the students to go get the principal. And he said, my father's last name was Petty. He said, Petty, come up here and do this problem. He did the problem and the teacher got fired. But he was just that brilliant with math. So he had the mind to do antiques and numbers. So he was a self-made antique dealer because he would get the books out, he would study, and he learned. I don't know how many years he put into just studying, antiques. And my father was also a minister, so he did both. He had a dual career. So what happened is that I was able to watch him do business because my thing was not to be a teacher, but a businesswoman. But I didn't want to take any more math. So that's how I got into teaching. But I kicked myself sometimes. I said I should have just gone on to be a businesswoman. But I'm catching it now. I'm learning the ropes now. But
Yes.
yeah, and I would see my father was the only Black antique dealer in the state of New York on the East Coast. And he started his store in the Jim Crow era.
Wow.
So our clientele was not the Black community, unfortunately, because they didn't understand. A lot of people thought antiques were junk, but there
Mhm.
were pieces that he had winged victory that were, it was just worth so much. And this kind of, in business, it could be a feast or famine, but he was in a very good location, especially up near Syracuse, New York.
Mhm.
It was, there were so many antiques because it's the oldest part of the country. So he would go and do appraisals at people's homes and their businesses. So sometimes people didn't know what they had. My mother would always say, people do not know what they have. So if
Wow.
you have a piece of antique, I would say get it appraised. Before, it was anything that was over 50 years,
Mhm.
definitely over 100 years. But I see even on the Antique Roadshow, people might come up with a G.I. Joe or a doll or
Mhm.
a truck. And those are very valuable. We were throwing away antiques and we didn't realize it. There are things, collections today that we have, but we don't realize what is a potential collection.
Yeah, well, I think I see like the cookware. Is it? I want to say it's the Corning cookware, the white
Yes. Yeah.
cookware that
Mhm.
everybody had in their homes. Now
Yes.
that is so valuable. And
Yes.
you're right, we just did not know. We did not recognize the value in so many of the just everyday things that we had around the house.
Yes. So that's what, so I learned a lot of different things. I learned that there are no excuses. Giving up is not an option.
Mhm.
Do what you can do. And I adopted the motto of I can and I will. Watch me.
Yes, watch me work. So
Yeah.
I want to do a quick little commercial in here. So, like I said, the QR code is up. You can get the book in hardcover. This is the hardcover book, and I did order this book before the live stream to make sure that I have it. And here you can see like the family, everybody in there, but she also has a companion coloring book to go along with it. So if you use the QR code, and I'm also going to drop the link so that if you guys want to use the link, you can get the coloring book, and it has activities in the back. We talked about retelling the story, so there's comprehension questions and different things like that. So tell us a little bit more about being an educator, and why you wanted to do this companion coloring and activity book as well.
Well, comprehension is built with extra activity. There are a few kids who can listen to the story and they're auditory learners, but then you have the kinesthetic learners who have to feel, touch, and do activities. So, yes. And so when you bring in different activities, it builds comprehension. So anything that we're teaching a child or an adult, you want to have an extra activities, because you may use this book over a period of a week. Uh, Most kids can't get through that book in one day unless you're just scribbling. And I
Hmm.
have taken it into schools and my hair was purple, the face was yellow. So they just color anything. That's the beauty of children. They're not really color stricken. So you could be any color by the time they get through with the book. But
Yes.
it's just like word search. There's a glossary in there so they can know what the words meant. Because some of them didn't know what prosthetic was, but I
Hmm.
was surprised a lot of them did know what a prosthetic was. And so they thought it was a robotic arm, but my father's arm at that time, it was not robotic. It was just there as it was just for the aesthetics, but it just hung there. And so I think my brother said we all tried to get that arm on. So Yeah, we were some curious people without asking any questions. My father came from the silent generation where you don't ask questions and you just um, take it for what it's worth. And you see me doing what I'm doing, so let's keep it moving.
You listen, you follow directions, you
Mhm.
learn. So, and I think there's so many benefits in that. I think there's lots of benefits now with, interacting more and being able to
Yes.
question and talk, but it does just speak to the different generations and how things changed.
Hmm.
And if you're closer to the Jim Crow era, if you're closer to slavery, you know how, being quiet is a matter of life and death.
Yes.
Listening and following directions is a matter of life and death. So,
Hmm.
as we get further and further from that, as parents, we can learn and, start to interact more. But like you said, just by his example,
Yes.
you were able to learn so much, and I'm sure that speaks to what you were just talking about, your desire now to, you're an author and entrepreneur and everything
Hmm.
like that. So what have you been learning on your entrepreneurial journey?
Oh, you know what? I think I've always been an entrepreneur because I was selling lollipops when I was younger. And I had a
Yeah.
piggy bank. My father gave us all a glass piggy bank since he was wanting us to save money. And then my brothers had a newspaper route. I was selling uh, Hershey or the M&M. Every time we had something in school, I was the top seller on all
Yes.
the
Yes.
top seller. I would go up to strangers. It didn't matter. I was going to sell my candy. I've done some uh, like a movie. It wasn't a movie book, but it was more like a program bill where I went and got all the advertisements for the book. So I sold advertisements and I sold, but I wasn't selling it for myself. So I was having a hard time selling. But with the books, I see, you know how you have a table when you're, especially when you're doing a vendor's event,
Mm-hmm.
everybody has a table. That's what my father did. They all had antiques on their table. I said, I'm doing the same thing. It just dawned on me that I was doing the same thing that my father does. So your parents have such a strong effect on your life
Yes.
no matter what it is. I feel blessed that I came from entrepreneurs. But one thing about my father, his father was an entrepreneur, and
Wow.
his mother and his brothers, they all had their own business.
Wow.
So he came from that. So my grandfather, who was my father's father, had 1,000 acres. So
Mm.
they were self-sufficient. They made their own shoes. They grew their own crop. They he knew how to put the animals in salt so it could stay, a block of salt so it could stay fresh. I don't know what I would do if I had to do all of that. But when you grow up on a farm, you get to do a lot of things that you think you couldn't do. But if had I been in that environment, that's what I would have done. Now his family also, they had the first medical doctor who went to Meharry Medical School because my father lived right outside of Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the three brothers who were his uncles had to go to Meharry, so they designated one person to go to Meharry Medical School, and so he became a medical doctor. As far as I know, he was the first one, and they built the first church in the country, wherever in that neighborhood. So they owned up almost all the land around there.
There's so much history, and I'm so glad you're sharing this. We have a lot in common. My mom is an educator, and my dad is an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
definitely. And both families, we still have, some land,
Hmm.
not what there was, but still some
Yes.
land from my, great grandparents.
Yeah.
So I think that really speaks to the legacy of African Americans, that out of, slavery, out of Jim Crow,
Yes.
we were off and running. We built.
Yes.
There wasn't fear there. We saw opportunity,
Yes.
and we took those opportunities and made the best of them. So that is huge. The
Exactly.
first doctor,
Yes.
acres and acres of land,
Yes.
entrepreneurs who
Yes.
are, living their dream, farmers. We might have to find you, because because the way the economy is set up, we
I
might
know.
need you to be
Yeah.
able to, bring out your farming expertise, like, like fall back, like, what did I learn?
Yeah.
So that is so amazing. I'm so excited to hear that. So I do want to mention a couple of things, a few people. So we did mention Aaliyah Burks. So she's the illustrator. She's an
Hmm.
amazing illustrator. And so I just want to show, the books again and her work. And then also, I am a publisher, so I do help people do their print on demand books. So when I get clients, they own all of the works. I walk them through the process. If they want to be more hands on, they can, or if they kind of just want me to lead in that, I will definitely do that as well. But I do want you to know. So if if you want to write a book, if you're aspiring, woohoo! Hey, Grant.
Yes.
He's another one of our illustrators. I would love for you to reach out and let me know, because I would love to work with you. But I also want to say I'm not the only game in town. So I actually connected with Dr. Eunice through Nicole Brown Horston, because she helped Dr. Eunice with a different book, and then she referred her to me when she was working on the children's book, because she knew that I work with a lot of children's book authors. And then I will also say that Dr. Eunice refers a lot of people to
I
me.
sure do.
So one, she really does. She really
Yes.
does. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And
I've been trying to get everybody to write a book.
yes, we need everyone to write it. I mean, even if you don't work with me, even if you go to YouTube University, you can find out all of the things. I just think it's so important. We've had so many centuries where our voices were not included in mass. Because it was illegal for us to read, it was illegal for us to write, and so we dang sure wasn't publishing no books. Now, a
Yes.
few did get out, and that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. But we lost so much of our heritage. We
Yes.
lost so much knowledge of who we are. So it's so important that we share our stories. And it doesn't matter whether you think you have an amazing, story, or whether you just think, oh, I just, want to share something that's been on my heart. I definitely want to be able to assist in that. But I do want to mention Cammie Townsend, who will be here in the future. She was referred by Dr. Eunice, and I had an opportunity to work with her. So if you want to share a little bit about, working with me and the process, and what you thought about it, and that's okay.
Well, when I came to you, Stephanie, um, you were helping Nicole, and you were helping us get the book onto Amazon because we didn't have a clue. Well, she had more of a clue than I did, but we got stuck. And so I remember meeting you over the Zoom. And
Mhm.
so then when I got ready, that's when I got in contact with you, because I knew Nicole told me that it was like a whole group of Black authors, and mainly female authors. And I had started wanting to write a book in '98. But one thing I do want to say is that when I was attending Ohio State, my my advisor told me, because my writing was not as strong as other students, or maybe I didn't do a whole lot of writing in high school or essays. So by the time I got to college, I was kind of lost. But I immediately, this one of my black professors told me this, your writing is just terrible. I got a tutor lined up for you and I want you to make a beeline to that tutor. But I went to that tutor and she helped me every single day to structure sentences and just use. So I had to start from the bottom up, but I was determined. That was my determination and my tenacity. So
Mm-hmm.
when I got to Ohio State, um, they did a lot of, you know, multiple choice, and that just wasn't, I was a better writer than multiple choice. So they told me, my advisor told me, what you need to do is drop out of Ohio State, go back to the community college because you're not college material. So, yes, I've been trying to find that that person.
What?
So they told me that that was discouraging, but I could not give up. I had a mission. I had to get my degree. So that was my bachelor's degree. And it took me about 13 years to go back and get my master's. And so, and then I got my doctorate after that. But I was sure, I was determined to get through. Yeah,
I,
that was so discouraging.
I'm so glad you know you're sharing your story. And I think when I came through school, you know, it was okay because I have a degree in education as well. I don't have a master's or a doctorate, but
That's
they
okay.
probably would have told me, "You're not master's material." But I
Yeah.
think it was okay for, you know, black women to be to be counselors and
Yeah.
teachers and nurses. But I can tell you to this day, I have a friend, actually, she's an author who's a judge, and her daughter was attending Ohio State recently, and I believe she was wanting to become a lawyer or a doctor. She was wanting to become something, and they were still doing that. They were
Still
still
doing it. Yeah.
discouraging. They were still saying,
Yeah.
you're not such and such material. Oh,
Yeah.
you're
It
not going to
was.
make it through. Oh, you're not going to be able to do the testing. And then I have another author that I worked with directly, and I think I'm gonna make up what she is, but she's some type of physical therapist or something.
Okay.
And again, that like throughout, just discouraging her. Oh, you're
Yes.
not going to be able to do it. You're not going to pass the test.
Yeah.
Your writing isn't good enough. You're not smart enough.
Mhm.
So, if you are hearing the sound of our voice, please know that when you have a dream, when you have a goal, when there's something that you want to do, please know that you can do it. People are going to come to you. People who are in authority, people who you think you should listen to. Like she
Mhm.
said, advisors and presidents of different departments,
Mhm.
educators, they're going to tell you you're not good enough. You can't
Mhm.
do this. You can't make it. But it's a lie from the pits of hell.
Yes, it
Because, like
is.
you said, as far as we've come, where we've come from, and we just continue to move forward, they don't understand. They don't
Yeah.
understand why we don't throw our hands up and give
No.
up. They don't
I
understand Dr. Eunice, you know?
no. They just. I had nothing to lose, so I just kept going, and I depended on God because
Yes.
I had to pray. And I remember getting on my knees in the bathroom saying, "God, only you can help me." And so I did. I walked across that stage and I tried to shake that the woman's hand that she would not. She actually snatched her hand away from me. So I just kept on going. You know, I was just there was my father had already instilled in me. It doesn't matter what it is. That's
Mm-hmm.
I was not going to handicap myself because my
Mm-hmm.
father did not buy into handicap.
So
He
I just want to ask you this. So you move forward. How were you able to do that without like holding a grudge or without being upset or without that, you know, bothering you into the future?
well actually I did have a plan to come back and bring my degree to. I was going to print a copy. I just hadn't gotten around to it. But I was it was several people that I was going to give a copy of my degree or something to let them know
Mm.
you did not stop me. You may have discouraged me, but you can't hold me down. You cannot. That's what I believed. And then my faith in God, because I
Yeah.
knew that God had mapped out my pathway and I had nothing else to lose. I was young and I mean, I wanted to go to HBCU, but
Mhm.
Ohio State was here, and that's
Mhm.
where I went. And I didn't come out with any student loans
Oh,
at
that is
Ohio State.
excellent.
But graduate school is another story.
Well, you know.
But you know, you did help me, Stephanie, because when I came to you, um, I didn't have, I just knew, I just trusted that you would get me to the right place. And so you let me write, and then I gave it to you. And then we had Aaliyah come in. So I just felt like I had the freedom.
Yes, definitely. So I'll give people a little bit of insight because I really just try to meet people where they are and follow their
Yeah.
lead. I never have, like you're going to do A, B, C, D in this order, and no, this is how I do it, blah blah blah. So when Dr. Eunice came to me, she had like an outline of the story, and then I kind of like worked on it and gave her a rendition, and she was like, nah. And then somebody else, I think,
Oh,
did
my
something.
husband helped me because he's a writer.
Yes, somebody else
Mhm.
worked on it, and I'm not sure if this time was her husband, but she was like, nah, nah. So one time we were just having a conversation, and she was sharing something, and it might have been the pancake story, or it
Yes.
was some story that I felt like it really related to children, and I was like, oh, well, you should really start there. You should tell that story because the children are going to really relate to that, and then from there she just started writing. So, she wrote her manuscript and made it something that aligned with her spirit and her story and what she wanted to share. So
Mhm.
I think that is amazing. And I want people to know, like, I'm never offended. I always share my input and
Yeah.
guide and advise and different things like that. But at the end of the day, for every author, it's your story, it's your book.
Yes.
So you have to be excited about that. You have to be proud of that. And it's an excellent, excellent book. And it did take
Yes.
some time, some weeks, maybe a month or two for us
Yes.
to get to that final draft, but it
Yes.
was definitely well worth it. So
Yes, it
that's
was. It was
exciting.
just, and children's books are not easy to write because you got to think about the vocabulary, the level of reading. So you just have to start writing and have other people read and get their opinion about it. So, yes.
Yes, definitely, definitely. So is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to mention or
I think we've covered most of it. It's just that if you have this story has been burning inside of me. And so I kept notes. And the one thing, my sister was going to be the illustrator, but she had passed away. But she illustrated the first book, at least the cover. And she also illustrated the caramel drips, the cover, and Nicole was able to keep the outline of what she wanted to do. So
Mhm.
um, it's good to have people who are gifted. But then you and Aaliyah came along to help me finish that book. So, and I didn't give up. It was a few months I just left it on the shelf. I said I can't do this right now. And then I did two books that year.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, you definitely did. So tell us about that. Tell us about what you have coming up in the future. You can tell us about, the other books that you have, but also your next book or what you have
mhm.
on the horizon.
So I did caramel drips. Caramel drips were, it was like one liners. And so Nicole helped me to expand the one liners and really talk about it. And so I left space for the writers to write. So it's an interactive journal. If you don't know what to write about, you can read one of those prompts and you can start writing. Journaling is not difficult. Sometimes it's hard to get started. Um, I remember I couldn't understand dream symbols, so I studied it and I started writing and journaling. And journaling is very therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
You can really get a lot out. You can get anger out in journaling. You can just get good thoughts. I just write down things that would make sense, like what if you become like the people you criticize? So
Ooh, I love that. Say, wait,
yeah,
hold on. Repeat that, please.
what if you become like the people you criticize? Well, that came to me because I was criticizing somebody, and I felt like God was saying, what if you become like the people you criticize? I said,
Mm,
no, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like that. But it's the other one was Cinderella still in counseling. So I talk
mm,
about all those fantasies and illusions that we live in, and then we have to go do the work of
yes.
getting out of that illusion. And we
Mm,
all know Cinderella is a pitiful story.
mm.
And we
Okay,
have to
wait, see now you now wait, hold up. So just give us this one little insight. Why is Cinderella a pitiful story?
because Cinderella believed that somebody was going to rescue her and take her away and give her the life that she wanted. Nobody can give you the life that you want unless you know what life that you want. So you end up depending on another person to give you the roadmap for your own life. And that can only come from God. It
Yes.
comes through meditation, and sometimes we're not even supposed to be with the person, whatever Cinderella's prince was. We're not even supposed to be with that prince.
Well, you know what? I do want to say that. So ladies, if you're listening, and this is for the fellas too, but really, young ladies, we're indoctrinated to
Yes.
believe that there's going to be this Prince Charming, and then at all the end of these stories, what do they tell us? Happily ever after. What does that even mean? There's no follow up. We don't know where she living. We don't know how she being treated. We
No.
don't know, if he's the Prince Charming that,
Yeah.
he said he was. So what does happily ever after mean? So you have to create your own happily ever after. If you
Yes.
believe in God, if you believe in Buddha, if you believe in Muhammad, Jesus Christ, a greater power, spirit, source, universe, however you believe, you create the life that you want. You create that. And if you so desire to make space and have a partner, you guys can create a beautiful life together. But yes, we should not be thinking that someone is going to, pop out and rescue us, as damsels in distress. I did a
Right.
whole calendar about that, how
Oh,
as African American women, we not able to be damsel in distress anyway.
yes.
So, so yeah, so I'm so glad that you said that. I'm sorry, I
Yes.
my bad. Okay,
Yeah. And
keep
just
going.
like fender benders are not as serious as a major accident. Sometimes in life we have fender benders.
Hmm.
So we make a mountain out of a molehill, but it's really not that serious. And when we can like arrest ourselves and start holding ourselves accountable to ourselves. And sometimes we have to say no to us.
Mm.
And so I remember a friend of mine, because I didn't say no to myself too often. I just, if I wanted to do it, I was going to do it. When I turned 35, I went back to graduate school. I had my 8-year-old son with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took him to class, and I told him, I said, sit right in this seat until I come back. Well, he was right outside my classroom. I said, okay, Jeremy, I don't want you to move. So I came out of the class. A big old note on the chair says, if anybody lost a child, he's in security. That was him. So, I mean, even as a single mother, um, I stayed married till he was about 2. Even as a
Mm-hmm.
single mother, I could not let that stop me. I couldn't let the little boy stop me. He went to class with me. He interrupted the class. He disagreed with the professor because it was I was doing early childhood. And so I had to find a drop off center for him so he wouldn't get me kicked out of school. So, but
Wow.
I enjoyed my time being a parent.
Mm-hmm.
I used a lot of my child development experiences that I learned of how to treat a child. And I also wanted to treat my child and my students like I wanted to be treated. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to play in the sandbox too. So I brought me a bag of sand home. Just,
Oh, that's right. I
and
know that.
so,
You gotta tell it, Dr. Eunice.
yeah, so I think I can do a lot. Oh, and at that time I joined the military. I was 38 years old. I was like the second oldest one in there. So I went in as an officer, which was really good for me. And they said,
Wow.
"That you," I said, I want to join the military. I want to join the army. And they said, well, there's nothing left for you to do except be a chaplain. I said, I will be a chaplain. So that's what I did. And I
Well,
spent,
that is so amazing. So, Miss Laura, she mentioned it earlier that you have such a story. Now, I do want you to tell the people. I know you're thinking about doing another story for middle grades,
yes.
about your dad. But what about your story? Is
Well,
that on
yeah,
your mind to
I'm
do
going
that?
to, and I'm going to have you help me because I'm going to do a novel. It'll be about my life. I'm just make up stuff,
Yes.
just embellish on it. So I'm telling my story, but I want to make it more interesting. I mean, my
No,
story
I,
is
I love
interesting.
that, and a lot of people do that because this is from mirror to manuscript. So you're
Yes.
looking in the mirror and you're telling your story, but you can do a little sprinkle,
Yeah.
sprinkle, here and there. Your
Yeah.
story is amazing. I mean, I've
Yeah.
learned so much about you today that I just did not know. So
Yeah.
I'm super excited to help you work on that. But then also, do you want to speak about the book about your father that you're also thinking about the next
Okay.
one?
So I'm writing a book about my neighborhood where, because and about my mother
Mm-hmm.
in this book, but I want to do a book that will be a children's book because in our neighborhood, we lived in the fruit belt in Buffalo, New York. So
Mm-hmm.
every street was named after a fruit: orange, cherry, apple. You can go down the street and pick your own fruit. And then we would pick the fruit, come home and wash it off and eat it. So
Mm.
I thought that was unusual. We had the grapevine, which my mother told us do not play. We had our own kickball team. We had our own. We didn't play football, but baseball. We whatever team it was. She said, "Do not kick that ball on the grapevine because you'll tear it up." We tore that grapevine up, and it was we didn't understand. Those grapes were so good, though. If we had known that we really were going to tear it up, I don't think we would have kept kicking the ball up there.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is
My mother was
hilarious.
4'11", but she could chase you around the house with a
Oh,
broom.
wow, wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
So tell the people how they can find you. We have your QR code up. You guys, please order the books. Definitely do so. We also put the link down there if you want to, copy and paste the link, but also tell the people how they can follow you and find you and get more information.
Yes, I'm on Facebook and I'm on LinkedIn under Eunice Inez. I am on, I was on Twitter. I can't find myself. I never used it really. And then I am on LinkedIn and I also have a website. It's www.educationtoday.com. Education Today in the number one.
Okay, www.education,
Education Today,
the number two.
the number one,
Oh, today.
um, .com.
Okay, I'm gonna see if that goes. Okay, so definitely we're going to share that as well. And now tell the people some of the other stuff that you're doing with the book. I know you want to get into different schools and speak.
Yes.
So tell us about
Yeah.
that.
So I've been going to different schools to share my book with the kids, and it's interesting how they accept the book and that they can talk about bullying. And one little boy told me that his mother lost a sister. His sister, no, he said, my sister's in heaven. I said, how do you know? He said, we got in a car accident. And I said, where were you? He said, I was in my mom's belly. And so then evidently his mom told him about his sister that, and sometimes parents do that because they're grieving
Yes.
so much. And
Mm-hmm.
so later on, he said, I have to have one of those books. I said, well, let's talk to your teacher about it, see if they want to buy one. And then he
Yeah.
came back. He said, I really have to have one of those books. So for him, it was something about that story that he wanted to have the book. Finally, I just gave it to him, and all the other kids I left because once you give out one, you got to give them all out.
Right.
His teachers told me, they said he had never talked to anyone
Wow.
that long. And so I said he was really touched or moved, but I don't know which part because I couldn't really get to talk with him at length.
Mhm.
But I know they said he never stood next to anybody that long, and then he just didn't talk. And so I was like amazed that he did talk. So that was in one of the schools that I went to. And I'm looking to go into some more schools because some of the kids really could not buy the book, and some of the
Mhm.
schools didn't have the money.
Mhm.
So I'm going to be looking for sponsors so that when I do go into school, I won't have to hold back. I can give them the books.
Right. You can give them the book. So this is so important. If anyone is in the schools, an educator, a principal, part of the district, it's I we all as entrepreneurs, as authors across the board, we sometimes have such a difficult time getting into the schools, getting into the institutions from whence we came. So as an educator, as I attended Columbus city schools. It is so important that we be able to speak to our youth, that we be able to share our stories. That's what Mirror is about, from Mirror to Manuscript. When we share our stories with these youth, they see themselves. That's
Yes.
why the little boy was saying, I have to have that book. I need that
Yes.
book because there was something in that story that reminded him of him, that said, I have value, that said, I'm important. This is about me. And when you leave out the community and you place more value on others, you're diminishing that child, because
Yes.
you're showing that child that other people are more important, other stories are more important. I don't have any thing against window stories. So that's the other story, when you're looking out and you're looking at someone else's life and someone else's adventure and seeing someone else's likeness and family and name. I think all stories are important. But when it's one sided or predominantly one sided, except for a certain month or something like that, you are telling those youth who is valuable and who is not. So it is so important that we be able, to share our stories and provide them with books. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Oh,
okay,
yes.
my soapbox. I'm sorry.
No, but I'll be having Sunday dinner conversations on September 28th, and which
Yeah.
Stephanie is one of my authors. The authors will be talking about their books. They'll spend 5 minutes talking about their books and how it contributes to our Black heritage.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%, 100%. So, you guys, you will not believe this, but before we got on, Dr. Eunice was concerned. She was like, "How are we going to talk for an hour?
I know.
What are we going to talk about?" And I promise you, Dr. Eunice was off and running.
Yes.
She would have filled this hour with great content with or without me. I also want to give a special thanks to Afia Trappa. She is in our back office pulling on the strings. I don't know if she wants to. Do you want to come on camera? Okay, she said yes. So all right. So I'm gonna bring her on. Beautiful, beautiful. Hello, beautiful.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, hi, hi. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yes, yes.
Welcome.
Wasn't she amazing? Yes. So this was our first show, you guys. I think it went amazingly well. Please like, please comment, please subscribe, please share. If you are watching the playback, please definitely purchase the book, support these authors. If there's any banks out there, any insurance companies, any businesses who want to sponsor so that she can go back into the schools and actually take books, definitely do so. Reach out to her. And yeah, this is From Mirror to Manuscript. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I
Thank you for
enjoyed it.
being on.
Okay.